Well, good morning, all. This would be interaction number 13 with Kay. And here we are at Friday, October the 10th. And focusing into the space that is necessary for communication. And I feel Karen hovering quite close. Good morning to you, Karen. Good morning, Gordon. Glad you could make it. Oh, yes. Yes, that's fine. No issue there. And glad to be here. And thank you for the information passed through Regina. It's a subtle and complex message, and I have just reread it. And you said you might have more to share if I were interested on this matter. And certainly your note is interesting enough in and of itself. And what you and guides are doing for us as a GG group. And that is quite fascinating. Talking about a reverse wave of energy and such matters. You speak of the work elevating the energy of the group and not wishing as a group of guides to be seen, to leave it open for the visitor and the other guests that would be observing and interacting with the group. And you were elevating my biosphere energy to help me engage for this one. And you spoke of the significant amount of work that you do these recent times because of the dark, poisoned, and dense aura surrounding the earthly plane, seeming to get more difficult to cross. And your upping of your own game in order to do it. So I believe I understand all that, and how it leads us to an even more intimate interaction as guide and communicant. And I sensed you were quite close on many occasions and was, quite comfortable with that, as I've been doing this sort of thing for years. And also interacting with spirits of a lower model nature than yourself. And not in the least abashed by that sort of thing. They're like disobedient little puppies. I don't mind that at all. Anyway, what would you like to add? Would you like to add anything to that note that you passed along? Yes, I just want to say that it was a great lesson for me not to get irritated or offended on your behalf, that you are well able to cope with this, and I needn't have a protective, dare I say it, motherly attitude, feeling that you need help when actually I think it's me that needs help. So Karen, if that sounds like an apology, well, that's fine. I'm good with that. It's nice to have the explanation, because I was a little puzzled as to the communication at the time and my own rather too prideful reaction. And we all have these little lessons to learn, me included. Although, when I'm doing this sort of thing on my own, as it were, I've really only got my own issues to cope with. And those can be many. But so you're saying you're finding the traverse through the plains more difficult these days? Is that right? Yes, I am, but I have had time to ponder on this, and I think it's because of my still, relative lack of ability to do this transfer. I've watched you do the transfer, not right now, but, in other times recent past, and you just whiz right through. You're a bit like a shooting star. And whereas I feel like a bit of a plodder, and can easily be slowed down by the various energetic hurdles that are thrown up by the aggressive, fearful, paranoid, warlike activities of the game players of the elite manipulator variety. They don't want sensitives like yourself, and there are many, so I'm told, to be functioning as well as you can. They want to slow you down and trip you up. And as I become more and more aware of that, I treat it as a series of hurdles, whereas you seem so used to it, you just whiz right through. Yes, Karen, I recognize what you're saying. Even in my early days of practicing, when I was using the hemisync tapes made and provided by the Monroe Institute people, and discussions would come up in Bruce Moen's conversation board about how we experienced our energetic projection using the hemisync tapes. And I couldn't relate to what the others were saying, as they had a sort of a vibratory sort of noise would happen to them, shaking them a little bit, and then there'd be a liftoff. And for me, I could not track my astral self, if you want to call it that, projecting out of my physical, as others could. For the others, it seemed to be like laboriously climbing a ladder. And for me, I was a bit like a firework whizzing off. And that was puzzling and amusing. But this notion of really whipping through the levels to get to a fairly high level, if one can use those relative terms, was a shock to me. I saw myself as a newbie, but such things and such manifestations and such energetic experiences slowly taught me that I was not a newbie, that I had been doing this unconsciously for a very long time, including this incarnation. As a child, I was doing it and did not know. So, much of a learning curve for Gordon here. So I can sympathize with your challenges in adjusting. Yes, Gordon, I am learning all the time here and seeing how my ego can still operate in a very healthy fashion, even on this paradise level. Yes, Karen, it's true. We all have that ego agenda in spirit as we do in the physical. We still have a personality, although it's, how shall I say, somewhat elevated from earthly concerns. What would be my ego agenda? Well, it's the same one I've had since ancient Egypt. The emancipation of the common man. The linking up of the incarnate being with the God consciousness without the interruptions and interpolations of the various elites who would like to manipulate us. And that's not just the elites of the current epoch. There was enough going on in ancient times, or what we call ancient times. And certainly, if we want to whip back to ancient Egypt, as we all were there, whether we remember it or not, the being that's talking to you now as Gordon certainly was. And I was involved in the priesthood, and one of the many things we did was practice projection and teach others how to do it. Selected candidates would apply, and we would train them slowly and carefully. A little too slowly and carefully, I thought. But the vibration of the physical body back then was lower than it is now. That is why projection, as sort of led by the pioneers like Bob Monroe and his friends at Monroe that developed the technique of the hemisync and its interaction with the brain. They were selected because the time was right for this to happen. Yes, Gordon, I do getting to see how certain things progress or make their mark because, as you say, the time is right. And the time is right for a lot of other processes to be, how shall I say, put in motion. And my group and I are committed to our role in that, in helping to elevate groups of people and small communities to a higher vibratory level as a group, not just as individuals, although we do work with individuals too. And we do it not merely to communicate, as the quote-unquote deceased often wish to do with their loved ones, but as a practical measure aiding humanity in its, how shall I say, rise beyond what their unconscious limitations have held them to so far, so that they will be able to project through imagination and lucid dreaming, not just propelled by grieving, but propelled by itchy curiosity to see what lies beyond other than their passed on loved ones. We are engaged in expanding consciousness. Although, as I say that, I realize the mistake in my expression of that. The expansion of consciousness seems to be happening on several levels that I'm aware of, in and of itself. And we are its, let's say, handmaidens. We're helping it out, but it would happen whether we were helping it out or not. I see, Karen. And as you put it, I agree. Excuse me while I have some water. So, if I may add this perspective, Karen, even in this incarnation, and I know my efforts in this direction extend to past incarnations, I have found the so-called darkness around the planet, that cloud of negativity and paranoia and desire to manipulate and control to preserve various conceptions of the status quo, it does not seem much worse to me than it's been. My traveling backwards in time suggests to me that the early days of the Cold War, post-World War II, were pretty intense energetically. And the atmosphere was quite disturbed by the explosion of nuclear bombs, of which I now recognize our ET friends did their best to control and keep under a certain level of what we would call wraps, keep it under wraps. I did not know this some years ago, but I'm starting to recognize this now, as we're having so much personal and group communication with the various species that are with us now, as we struggle mightily to join the Galactic Brotherhood without resorting to fistfights in the psychic parliament that we're trying to join. We do have our little aggressivenesses to tame, don't we? But personally, I don't see it as worse now as in the last 50 years, although others have assured me that the, how shall I say, psychic manipulation through technology, satellites, and other means have increased in efficiency, as all technical things seem to have increased in efficiency. And the agencies that are attempting to employ them are, shall I say, terribly excited about the possibilities of what they can do. Kind of like young kids going, hey, cool, look what we can do with this. You know, like video games gone mad. Maybe I'm just used to pushing my way through and ignoring the noise, as some people like to say, the noise, to get to that place where there is no noise and operate as a free and loving being with full capacities. Yes, Gordon, I admire your ability to do that and seek to learn the various tricks of the trade. And you will, Karen. I'm not the only person you can learn it from, but I'm certainly one of them. And the various trips that we have taken together in the last little while, over and above our chats here, will certainly help. And as you probably have guessed, I do this for others if they request it. And I'm quite willing to help out if the person's own curiosity and imagination are ready to be stimulated. So Karen, how is your group doing? Oh, we're doing very well, thank you, Gordon. Our ability to harmonize with each other is increasing, in your terms, we'd say by the week, although as you know we don't have weeks here. Yes, that's good news, and I guess I would say I'm not surprised to hear it. You focus on creating and sharing harmony, and it will happen. If you choose as a group to let go your earthly affiliations to whatever religion or belief system or lack of belief system that you may have had, and surrender it to the greater good of the group, this will happen. I was wondering if petty squabbles might break out as they do in other situations of groups with shared interests. As you know, the being on the mid-level astral plane where many millions are does not erase completely the activities of pride and ego, despite the great pleasures and joys experienced moment to moment on that level. Do you discuss amongst yourselves your perceptions of what lies beyond the vibrational level you are living in and treating as your comfort zone? Some of us do, yes. Some are concerned with raising those unfortunates on the slightly lower levels of the astral up to the level that we're on. And others of us are just as interested in what lies beyond our level, the more refined and magical paradises beyond. So there's a number of interests and concerns, and we discuss them regularly as we have our meetings and our get-togethers. When you say that, Karen, I see much jollity and fun-loving, what would I call, picnics with games and dancing. Oh yes, there's plenty of that, and why not? Being able to choose one's outfit for the picnic dance is more fun than you can shake a stick at. People really indulge themselves, and outlandish costumes are not uncommon. So, Karen, when your group picks a small community or a group that is affiliated for a number of reasons through shared interests and practices, do you find that you can raise them up temporarily, but they don't stay raised up? Yeah, they can slip back. They get the taste of the subtlety and greater expansion of consciousness and have that sort of oh wow experience. But later settle down to their comfort zones. And we see that they're enriched by it, but not quite ready to explore it further. As in, that was amazing. We'll have to do that again sometime. And then slip back into, the daily patterns. And people have daily patterns here, just like they do on Earth. Whether obviously lots of people go to work, but those that do not, that are retired like yourself, you still have your patterns, things you like to do in a certain order, in a certain way. And it's like that here. Many folks are decorating and redecorating their homes once they realize it's a function of imagination and mind and desire, and that it need not cost anything. That is something that many, many become enmeshed in quite joyfully. Putting together the design plans for their home with renovations and reimaginings, the sort of thing they would only fantasize about while on Earth. And of course, as we are all young and good looking now, as is well known to anyone who has studied or practiced spiritualistic communications, there's a certain level of romancing going on here. Relationships form, break up, reform, and that is another thing to, I don't want to say cope with, it's just another thing that's going on that takes up our interests. As you know, there's all manner of entertainments and artistic pursuits available here. And people either continue on what they were doing on Earth, whether it be musical or theatrical or, artistic as in, painting and drawing, design, or, various kinds of sporting activities. In fact, any sport that you can imagine is here, including a few that you probably haven't imagined. So there's this sense of, as I travel around, as you know I love to do, there's this sense of being dizzy at all the elaborate levels of opportunity that are available here. One can be on the edge of being overwhelmed quite easily. Karen, it's quite plain from your note that I received through Regina that you're quite familiar with the presence and abilities and activities of what we'll call my higher self. So are you familiar with the higher selves of others? Yes, some. Some incarnate folks are not really in touch with their higher selves because they don't recognize that reality beyond the vague imaginings of a soul that they still think they have to meet. Just in the way that many think there's a prophet that they still have to meet. Well, there is a prophet, but there's several, many, but they limit themselves through doubt and lack of worthiness, and then wonder why they can't meet that prophet. There's many angels that will take on that role if it looks like they can help people and communities that are angelic, shall I say, comrades, disciples of the various revered prophets, will take on that role to inspire groups and communities, shall we say. I've seen it happen, and it's very convincing. Angels are remarkable beings, and I'm just only now getting to, coming to understand the vast repertoire of, I'm going to say, games that they can play without causing any negativity by that reference. Higher selves are very similar. You know that from your own experience, that a higher self can be almost anything if it chooses to do so. And yes, Karen, I'm quite amazed by that and have been for, 30, 40 years. I referred to it in my second book around 2006, I think, More Adventures in Eternity. And that adventure of getting close to one's higher self and merging with it, that was a huge adventurous thrill for me back then. And as I mentioned in the book, there were many times when the boundary between Gordon and higher self was erased, and I couldn't tell who was who. And I had to give up my limited definition of myself, which had been sort of, yes, well, I'm a traveling astral being here, and that's a good thing to be. But then when you merge with higher self, it's something completely other. You lose your identity. And as you sort of play around looking for a new identity and not really finding it, but being, thrilled with the buzz of the experience, many magical things can happen. As I look back at that time, I remember joking with friends, okay, I'm going to stop using the word astonished. Because I was doing that for, a year or two, talking about everything as how astonished I was. And although there are, for me anyway, many subtle and almost indescribable adventures in the higher realms, I take great pleasure in meeting the spirits that Jean channels for us. Lovely to meet Mr. Redford briefly and express my love for his work. And RPG, another fascinating spirit with a great sense of gaiety. Really enjoyed meeting her. So, one can stretch beyond and still appreciate what is the basic experience of spirit communication. Yes, Gordon, both those spirits were much fun to be around. I really enjoyed it myself, and I know others did too. And I can cheerfully predict there will be more. And we will go on raising the level, the vibratory level of the GG group, as we do with other so-called groups. It's an energetic challenge for us, but I assure you we're up to it. We are, to some degree, working to negate the negative effects of the various interest groups that would manipulate the populace with financial scandals, frauds, propaganda, creating fear and tension and distrust. But we recognize while doing that many, well, maybe not many, some of the populace are engaged in quite an egotistical way in fighting the forces that repress them and fighting them with social and environmental activism. Their motives are pure, but it's tangled up with their egos to be heroes of humanity. And we see that quite clearly. And as for myself, I now understand how one goes hand in hand with the other. You know the names from the news, the people that are always popping up as saviors of would-be saviors of mankind. And then also the would-be bad actors, also enacting their ego desires to be wealthy and powerful and beyond criticism. It's quite the chaotic game, and the more I experience it, the more I enjoy it. And people may not take kindly to the fact that I'm enjoying it, and maybe would prefer that I was a peacemaker and a leveler of opportunities. Well, we do feel that, but we do recognize that opposing sides need to struggle. They need to reach the end of their struggles and find a result that is acceptable to their egos. Well, Karen, this is turning into quite an extended interaction, which I'm thoroughly enjoying, and would remind you that it takes quite a while to transcribe into text, but, I'll get to it. Karen, have you experimented with traveling through time? I have, but not very much. The thrill of being able to do what I can do tends to take up a lot of my time and energy and enjoyment. I'm aware that one can travel through time, and I know that you do. And But that is a adventure I have yet to fully explore. Ah, Karen, you'll enjoy it. It's great fun, like almost everything else is. And you have the advantage of knowing that it can be great fun without the inevitable come down of coming back to Earth, as I have to do. There is that sense of landing. Oh, back here again, that sort of a thing. Would you please communicate my love to all in the group as much and as best as you can? Very grateful to Regina for acting as a channel for me when you feel the need to have a second opinion. Oh, yes, me too. I cannot fully trust my own clarity of clairsentience, shall we say. I'm sure I've got these hidden blockages here, there, and everywhere, as all psychics seem to do. I am perhaps hobbled slightly by having done it for so long, looking into past lives and recognizing that the heaven of the upper astrals cannot be immediately created on earth, much as we might like to do so. That people have their issues that they have to work through, their karma, and as do nations. And one has to be patient. And that's something I've had to learn in the last few thousand years. Patience. I tend to overindulge in enthusiasm and impatience. In these seconds of silence, Karen, I am experiencing quite a harmony with you, and our vibrations are coming closer and closer together, and I hope you're experiencing that also. Oh yes, I am doing that, and we are indeed comrades in the no, I daren't say battle after what you just said. Comrades, not even in the struggle. Comrades in the great game of consciousness. Yes, I like that, Karen. Comrades in the great game of consciousness. And you may not care to speak of it, but you're probably coming across various interactions we've had in past lives, and that's fine. The exploration of these things, oh, here I go. Excuse me while I sneeze. The exploration of these things is the great party game of eternity. And I look forward to continuing it with you. And thank you for all that you have tried to do in facilitating these energetic interactions. Thank you, Gordon. And we'll talk again soon, I hope. Oh, yes, that we will do. Thank you to you and your group, and anyone else who may be listening in. May you all be inspired and feel the joy of knowing that despite difficulties, eternity is a reality that cannot be erased or removed. So long, Karen. So long, Gordon.